images of President Trump's police takeover rolling out in the nation's capital. FBI and DEA agents, some wearing masks, bulletproof vests, seen patrolling the streets of Washington, D.C.'s Georgetown neighborhood. And that Trump move is coming all really into clearer focus. Just as it is becoming into clearer focus, it's also raising new questions of which city is next. So first to D.C., the National Guard were seen at the Washington Monument. As well, we've also seen law enforcement personnel with the Department of Homeland Security and the U.S. Marshal Service taking part in traffic stops, and U.S. border agents on patrol at D.C.'s Union Station, the major hub for train travel there. All of this part of the president's crime crackdown, he says, in that city, a city he's tried to portray as being overrun by criminals, despite, again, the statistics and what the math and numbers say, which is the city has seen a 26% drop in violent crime from this time last year. With hundreds of federal law enforcement now on the streets of D.C., the FBI says 23 arrests were made overnight. And according to the FBI director, FBI agents were involved in nearly half of those arrests. CNN's Elena Treen is at the White House for us this morning, and a very different day it is this morning. What are you hearing today?
And it's amazing how CNN always, they do what they do. They use certain words to try to minimize exactly what's going on. Crime's down, this, that, and the other, but there is everything, when they say crime is down, everything makes me take a step back. Because a high-ranking DC official, he's in the police department. I cannot actually remember his position, but he's responsible for the crime data. And he's under investigation for just that, inputting the crime data. Everything after that makes me pause. It makes me pause. And if you look at it from a bigger view, he's the president of the United States. He has access to more information. He knows the ins and outs. He knows the ups and downs. He has access to more information than any of us will ever have access to. The decision to send in the National Guard and to take over their police department, which the DC, that means District of Columbia, that is one of, if not the only federalized district in this nation. That means the federal government, they made a deal. What was it called? The Home Act. Okay, the federal government said, okay, we're going to allow you to operate as your own autonomous city, but if shit go bad, there is a clause in the Home Act that says we can come in and do exactly what they're doing right now. So when they just listen to just the certain ancillary words that they use, crime is down, but the person that putting the crime data in is getting investigated, and that's a whole nother thing, because the leader of the police union said those directions came from the top, and the way that he said it, the guy that's getting investigated, I'm sure he told him that it's always 10 layers deep, and we only actually know about 2 layers. But let's continue with what these communists have to say.
Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, Kate, we have now really seen this ramped up presence of federal law enforcement in the streets and really at these high trafficked tourist spots. That is what we're hearing from our conversations with people here at the White House, where they want these federal law enforcement agents to be focused. So you mentioned we saw the National Guard. We actually saw 5 armored personal carriers near the Washington Monument on Tuesday evening. This comes after the National Guard had came in on Tuesday, but then of course we showed those images of people in the streets in Georgetown, and all of these areas that we know where there's a lot of traffic, not necessarily though the areas we know where crime is the highest, places like Anacostia and others. And we've heard some criticism of that approach. So we're going to have to see really how this all continues over the next 30 days, because that is another key question, of course, is how long are we actually going to see this, and how effective is this going to be, this entire federal takeover? We know that the president has until mid-September. After that point, the White House has said that they are going to reevaluate what this process looks like. And of course, after that as well, he would need congressional approval to move forward. But a key thing that they're going to be analyzing as well throughout that time period, again, is how successful is this? Because the key question is whether or not this is actually going to end up being a model for some of these other cities we know that the president has mentioned, places like Baltimore, where we did hear the governor of Maryland say that he believes that this move is not necessarily, it's dangerous and it could lead to problems, but also cities like Los Angeles, Chicago, all of that's still unclear as we watch how this ends up playing out over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I mean, Wes Moore, the governor of Maryland, not mincing words on what he thinks about it, also having served himself. DC's mayor, she has been watched very closely on how this is rolled out. She's in a different position than other mayors are, given DC's status. A lot of talk about how diplomatic and careful she had been in talking about this move by the president and the administration. Seems to be shifting a bit, though.
I think that
She said DC's mayor has been diplomatic and careful. She has exercised a bit of common sense. If y'all want to come in, it's just like with the migrant crisis. ICE coming in, taking these criminals up out of here. And the mayors of those towns are pushing back. No, let's leave the criminals here, which is fucking cuckoo world, in my opinion. So the DC mayor is in a very interesting position, because at first she welcomed the help that she's gonna get, and she said they were gonna work with them. Now, I haven't watched this video, so I'm thinking, is she starting to go the other way because she got a couple phone calls from them Satanist Democrats and saying, what the fuck are you doing? We don't give a fuck how much it helps your city. We don't give a fuck how much it helps your constituents. Donald Trump is doing this, so whatever the case, you gotta push back against him. It doesn't matter if it helps people. We are against whatever he does. Maybe she got that phone call. I don't know, but let's see.
that's exactly right. She's been treading very carefully. She's been very careful with her rhetoric. We've really seen that over the last week. I mean, when the president first announced that he had plans to do some of this, or even just wanting to bring in some federal law enforcement in the first place, it took her 5 days initially before she actually spoke out about it. And then even after he had made this announcement on Monday saying that he was going to be using the DC Home Rule Act to really have this takeover with federal agents, she still tried to argue that perhaps, it might be good to see people in the streets, while also noting that this move was unprecedented. But then yesterday she did change her tone a bit. Listen to what she said.
Yep. Let's see.
We all need to do what we can in our space, in our lane, to protect our city and get to the other side of this guy and make sure we elect the Democratic House so that we have a backstop to this authoritarian push.
So you heard her saying have a backstop to this authoritarian push, which she's arguing that the president has been doing here, and also saying that they need to have a change in
Here's my thing. I totally understand what they do. That's the Democrats. I understand what they do. But if you talk to people on the ground, just the normal citizens in the District of Columbia, DC, there's two schools of thought. They really don't care, or they're all for it. And they're all for it. Push that a little bit further. They're saying it's about time. We've been calling for this. So when you see all these activists and these people out here that are coming up here and they're protesting against this, they are paid by the Democrats, because the Democrats, they need chaos. They live in chaos, they live in hypocrisy. And you know why they do that? Because they want you to need them. They want you to need them. And if you need them, that way they always have their foot on your neck, and that way they can't control you. So that's where a lot of this is pretty much at the crux of what the Democratic Party is about. So anything that they do, just keep that in mind. And when it comes to anything, the Democrats are, you are 100% with us or you're 0% with us. It's kind of like, I'm a Trump supporter. I agree with most of what he does. Domestically, I think I agree with just about everything that he does. Internationally, I don't agree with most of what he does internationally. And you have a lot of people that support Trump that think like me, and it's all good. You can't be a Democrat and do that. If you're a Democrat, you have to believe in open borders. You have to believe in transitioning of children. You have to believe in deleting babies. You have to believe in soft crime, which is, instead of arresting them, prosecuting them, and locking them up, no, we'll just, if it's second degree murder or less, we just gonna let them go after we book them. That's how the Democrats operate. Anything I said, fact check it. If it makes sense to you, comment. If it don't make sense to you, comment. That's what they do.
Congress to make sure that this could potentially be prevented in the future. All to say, very different language than we've heard in recent days, Kate.
A market shift, that's for sure. All right, Elena, great to see you. Thank you for starting us off.
Joining me now in the group chat, Garrett Graff returns. He's a journalist and historian. Lulu Garcia-Navarro, CNN contributor and New York Times journalist. And Doug Heye, Republican strategist. Good morning to you all. Good morning. Doug, I'm going to start with you because I'm sure your group chats are lit with all the winning that is happening. But it is very much, as you could hear from the response, hitting a nerve. So what do you think of how the president has approached this?
Well, first, it's a very different tone that we're hearing from Mayor Bowser today and yesterday than we did just a couple of days earlier. She is one of the smartest operators in Washington, D.C., in how she's been trying to navigate these waters with Donald Trump, given the role that the federal government has with D.C., not just over the past week, but over the past several months. Clearly, Donald Trump feels, though, that this issue of crime, and I think Republicans writ large, it's terra firma for them. Whenever they can talk about being tough on crime, they're really where they want to be. And DC is ripe for these issues. Obviously the Capitol Mall, the National Mall is a safe place. Nobody really gets in any trouble there.
I mean, not obvious from the imagery, but yeah, now it is.
But if you walk in the mall, whether it's today or 2 weeks ago, you feel safe. You go in different neighborhoods and you start to feel less safe very quickly. 3 blocks from here is Union Station, where I unfortunately encountered a girl brawl at the metro stop just 2 weeks ago. And the things that I see at Union Station and smell at Union Station every day, every
he said,
week
and smell.
are troubling. And it's one of
He said, and smell at Union Station. I've heard several reports from the ground from people that I know is just weed in the air. And you do get a contact buzz. Have you heard? I don't know if any of you know, there's a such thing as a contact buzz, which means you don't have to be smoking the shit. it will affect you even if you smell it. And just on top of that, I'm a person that smells just, that's kind of the end all be all for me. It just smell, right? In my household, I have every kind of air freshener, this, that, and the other that you can think of to keep the air fresh, and so I don't have to smell anything, because a smell is, as a former Marine, I'm kind of ashamed to say that a smell is one of them things that are kind of break me down. But I mean, it is what it is. And that's what he said. You smell, he said it without saying it, weed in the air. Nobody wants to smell no fucking weed if you don't smoke weed. Cigarettes, cigars, none of that shit. Nobody wants to smell none of that shit. He's being nice. That's why he's up there and I'm talking to you right here.
Those things that allows Donald Trump to send this signal that he can. The thing I would say, while I don't like Donald Trump always finding something to declare an emergency that, by the way, always increases his powers, what a shock. If you want to solve this, one of the fastest things you can do is appoint judges, because the backlog that we have on prosecutions
I want to
is
bring
massive.
in the others here, because you're bringing up a good point that this is about two things at once. How does crime exist? How bad is it? One question. What should you do about it? What's legal or just, et cetera, is another question. And I think Democrats are struggling answering.
I
This
think
shit
that's
is
true.
not
I also
hard.
think this tells us a lot about the dynamics inside the Trump administration.
Why are
which
you
is,
talking about the
federal? This is an incredible misuse of federal resources in terms of the deployment of having, FBI agents, DEA agents, Border Patrol agents walking beats in the city, which is something they're not trained to do. They don't have the equipment to do. They don't even have the legal powers to do. I mean, one of the things is like a lot of these federal agents don't actually have the powers to do the things that the Metropolitan Police does here. And so it's interesting to me that someone like Kash Patel, the FBI director, is unwilling to say, actually, I have a really good plan for addressing crime in DC. Let me surge agents to a violent crime task force, to a fugitive task force, to a gang task force, and let the FBI agents do the things that they're supposed to do. And he's willing to let his agents be compromised for a political stunt.
I want to say that the police chief is trying to clarify.
Okay, what did he just say? What he sounded like an emotional woman that's losing an argument. That's exactly what this guy just sounded like. This guy right here in this plaid suit with his hair combed over, trying to be Clark Kent. It's a bunch of nothing. Let's continue.
The issue of just chain of command, who's in charge if you get, arrested in the district. Here they are answering that.
Are you answering to Terry Cole?
I answer to I answer to Mayor Muriel Bowser. And here, let me just say this: let us not have any controversy with that, okay? Because I know people want to build upon and create division. We're here to work together with our federal partners, and that's what we're going to do.
This lady right here, she is the chief of police in the capital of this country. Her prior position was she was over like equity hiring or something like that, which that is nothing. That is like, to me, that's like one of the last brain cells. And she was appointed by this lady, the mayor, Muriel Bowser. But the good stuff happens right now. Let's continue. Yeah. Oh, they did not play. Why did they play it? The part that they did not play was, the reporter asked her was, so if you're not answering to Donald Trump's guy, what's the chain of command? And she was like, what is that? Now, someone used to be in the military, 4 years in the Marine Corps, honorable discharge. One of the first things that they teach you is the chain of command. And if I'm not mistaken, the police is a military unit. Although it's on a municipal level, it's all in the cities, this, that, and that. Because automatically when one think of military, we think we're fighting all these wars and going all over the world and this, that, and the other. Well, police, they're fighting wars in cities, and they're doing it in a different fashion than the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, National Guard. But it is a military unit, and she don't know what the chain of command is. And I would venture to say I'm not surprised, because she was pretty much just appointed because she is a black woman. But Communist News Network, they didn't play that part.
We live in the dumbest timeline to say what the kids say. The fact that we have a president who is deploying federal forces on the streets of their capital.
Lulu, why you quoting what the kids say?
City and meeting with their enemies for a listening tour. I'm talking about Vladimir Putin. Shows how unserious this is to tackle what, is of course a problem in every city across the world where you have many, many people together. There's always going to be crime when you're talking about girl brawls, which I've seen too. We should have maybe better social media policies and better money for schools, not take away $1 billion from the DC budget, instead give money to schools to help children. And I'll also say that I live in DC in a historically black neighborhood, and last night, there were helicopters whirring over my head. I'm a former war correspondent. I've spent many years in conflict, and I never thought that this would be something that I would feel in an American city, other than, of course, on January 6th, which was,
here you
as
go.
we know, the biggest
Go ahead and go back to that.
City. DC is a city where last year alone, it had the highest rates of tourism. I think historically, over 24 million people came to the city. People did not feel unsafe. And so this is a solution without the kind of problem that Donald Trump and his administration is presenting it as.
So yeah, we're gonna be done with this. It's, of course, we're gonna have some dumbass.
Denver, Colorado.
We're gonna have some dumbass come up there and just go back to January 6th, which was 5 years ago. Which, even when you hear these Democrats talk about January 6th, they say the president, it was an insurrection, which he didn't want to leave office. He was trying to take over the government. So ask yourself, if he wanted to take over the government, he had control of the military. So why wouldn't he just deploy? He's the commander-in-chief of the military. Commander-in-chief, which means he can say and do whatever he wants with the military besides declare an act of war. Now, if the president declares an act of war, okay, Congress has to get involved. Anything below that, he pretty much, there may be some things that I don't know, but he pretty much has the autonomy to do what he wants to do with the military. So anytime they cite January 6th, he could have just deployed the military and just took over the government. He could have done that. My point is to let you know, anytime they cite January 6th, they are on some bullshit. Comment on the video. dislike the video, share the video. Also, you can go over to YouTube and look Mr. Info 5000. Peace.